You know, some things are more than just what they seem on the surface, and the FIFA World Cup, it's way more than just a game. It's like a global language, this shared dream that connects billions of us in hope, in heartbreak, and of course, in glory.
I mean, really think about that for a second. For one whole month, everything else can just fade away. Borders don't seem to matter as much, and literally billions of people are holding their breath for the very same reason. It's incredible.
Well, it definitely didn't start in some giant, flashy stadium under a million lights. Nope, it started in a world that was recovering from war, all inside the mind of one really determined guy who thought football could help put a fractured planet back together.
So, let's go back. Our story kicks off in the 1920s with a vision that kind of rose from the ashes of war and, honestly, would go on to change the world as we know it.
Okay, so this is the man, Jules Rimet. And here's what's so interesting. Back then, the only big international tournament was the Olympics. But the Olympics banned professional players, the actual best players in the world. And Rimet just thought that was crazy.
And with that one simple, really powerful statement, the World Cup was basically born. Rimet's whole idea was pretty radical for the time. A tournament for every single nation where the best could finally play against the best, and it didn't matter if you got paid to play or not.
But man, getting it off the ground was a huge challenge. The very first tournament was held in Uruguay. For the European teams, that was a 3-week boat trip during the Great Depression. Rimet literally had to go around and personally beg nations to show up. In the end, only 13 made the journey. Talk about a humble, difficult beginning.
So, the dream was alive, but it pretty quickly ran headfirst into the really harsh realities of the 20th century. This next chapter in the World Cup story, well, it's filled with politics, a world war, and one of the most heartbreaking tragedies in the history of sports. The 1934 tournament, for example, was basically just a big propaganda show for Mussolini's fascist government. Italy won again in '38, right as the clouds of war were gathering over Europe. And then, silence. For 12 long years, the world stopped playing football as World War II just took over everything.
But when the tournament finally came back in 1950, it was Brazil's big moment. They built the Maracanazo, this absolute cathedral of football, designed to hold a mind-blowing 200,000 people. And they were all there to see Brazil finally be crowned champions.
The setup for that final match was just pure cinema. Because of the way the tournament was structured, Brazil didn't even have to win against Uruguay. A tie would have been enough. Victory was seen as a total certainty. They had already pre-printed newspapers declaring them the champions.
And then, the unthinkable happened. Uruguay came from behind and won, 2-1. The loss was so unbelievably shocking, it was given its own name, the Maracanazo. And it wasn't just a loss, it was a deep national trauma. For a country that was building its whole modern identity around football, this was a wound that would haunt Brazil for generations.
Okay, so after all that darkness came the light. The tournament entered this golden era, one that wasn't defined by politics or countries, but by two incredible players who became football's very first global kings. In 1958, the world met a 17-year-old kid named Pelé. And he played with a kind of joy and just raw genius that no one had ever seen before. He scored a hat-trick in the semifinal, 2 more goals in the final, and this teenager single-handedly erased the ghost of the Maracanazo and gave Brazil its first ever World Cup. A true legend was born right then and there. And then there was Diego Maradona. And nothing sums up his complicated legacy better than this. In the 1986 quarterfinal against England, just a few years after the Falklands War, he gave us 2 of the most famous moments in sports history in the span of just 4 minutes. First, an act of just blatant cheating, and then an act of pure, untouchable genius.
So when people asked him about that first goal, Maradona gave them this iconic line. It just perfectly captured his whole persona, that mix of audacity, of skill, and this roguish charm. He'd go on to lead Argentina to glory, and that tournament really became his masterpiece.
All right, from here, the story just picks up speed. As TV and media absolutely exploded, the World Cup morphed into the global spectacle we know and love today, just packed with unforgettable drama and a whole new cast of heroes.
And these moments, they're just burned into our collective memory, right? In '94, Roberto Baggio's penalty miss, just pure agony. In 2006, Zinedine's infamous headbutt, literally his last act as a pro player. Then, the incredible, historic first African World Cup in 2010. And of course, in 2014, Germany's unbelievable 7-1 demolition of Brazil, in Brazil. A wound maybe even deeper than the Maracanazo.
It's like all of this history, all of this incredible drama, was building towards one single moment. A final that felt like the absolute climax for the career of one of the greatest players to ever kick a ball.
The 2022 final was it was unbelievable. Argentina was cruising, up 2-0. With just 10 minutes left, the trophy was theirs. And then, Kylian Mbappe just exploded, scoring twice in less than 2 minutes. In extra time, Messi scores, then Mbappe scores again. It was an absolute heavyweight fight that had to be settled in a nail-biting penalty shootout.
And with that one final penalty kick, Lionel Messi, after a legendary career, with every other trophy you can imagine, finally got the one prize that he and his entire country had been dreaming of. It was the absolute perfect fairy tale ending to one of the greatest stories in all of sports.
But here's the thing. The story doesn't end there. As epic as that final was, the World Cup just keeps growing, keeps evolving. And what's coming next is on a scale we have just never seen before.
Okay, check this out. The next World Cup is going to be historic. For the very first time, 3 countries are going to share hosting duties. The tournament itself is expanding from 32 to 48 teams. That means a grand total of 104 matches. This isn't just another big tournament. It's on track to be the largest single sporting event humanity has ever put on.
So you see, from a simple dream in one Frenchman's mind to a spectacle that spans entire continents. From just 13 teams on a boat to 48 nations all coming together on the world's biggest stage. The history of the World Cup is really the history of us, our dreams, our conflicts, and our amazing ability to come together. So the only question left is, what comes next? What hero, what drama, what unforgettable moment is waiting for us in the next chapter?